All right, today we're going to break down a really provocative philosophical argument. What if the very foundation of American rights makes it kind of impossible for some citizens to uphold them with integrity? Let's dive in and see what that's all about. Okay, so let's start with the central claim, which is definitely a bold one, that for an American, rejecting a creeder makes civic integrity an oxymoron. Now, it's super important to understand, this isn't an attack on anyone's personal character or morality. It's a structural argument about whether a certain worldview can truly be coherent with the nation's founding principles.
So to really get this, we have to look at the argument's very specific starting point. Not just America's laws, but its metaphysical foundation. You know, the fundamental beliefs about reality that give those laws their actual meaning in the first place.
Now, this whole argument doesn't start with the Constitution, which is where you might expect it to. Nope. It begins with what's called organic law. Think of these as the legal roots of the entire system, and for this argument, the Declaration of Independence is the main root. And here's where the relationship gets really interesting. The source material basically argues that the Declaration provides the why. You know, the big moral and metaphysical reason for the whole American project. And the Constitution? Well, that provides the how, the actual mechanics and structure of the government.
So this logical chain is absolutely crucial to the whole thesis. The idea is that rights aren't given by people or governments, they are endowed by a creator. And it's that specific act of endowment that makes them unalienable. So if you take out that first link, the creator, the argument is that the whole chain just snaps. Rights are no longer permanent and untouchable. They just become privileges that people can give and, well, that people can also take away.
But okay, what about other ways to ground our rights? This whole idea faces some really powerful secular challenges that basically ask, is a creator really a necessary part of this equation at all?
And this slide, wow, it really lays out the core tension perfectly. The Declaration is explicitly theistic, right? But then you have the Constitution, which is a really secular document. It bases its authority on we the people, not some divine being. And that, right there, creates this huge debate over which document truly defines the system's core identity.
So the counter-argument is basically, hey, hold on a second. You don't actually need a divine command to have rights. I mean, centuries of philosophy have built these really powerful secular foundations, arguing that rights can come from our shared human dignity, our ability to reason, or even just the practical fact that society works a whole lot better when we all agree to respect them.
And this is a really key counterpoint. It's kind of like a modern physicist who accepts Newton's laws of motion but totally rejects his theology. You can separate the valuable conclusion from the founder's specific metaphysical beliefs. An atheist can be a fierce defender of liberty without buying into its original origin story.
So, how does the original argument respond to that challenge? Well, it refines its focus. It makes this crucial distinction that kind of shifts the whole debate away from personal morality. And right here, this is the absolute core of the argument. It's not about personal integrity, whether someone is a good person or an honest person. It's about what the source calls civic integrity. This idea of a philosophical alignment between your own worldview and the foundational beliefs of the system you're operating in.
This analogy really helps clarify the point. The thesis isn't judging someone's character, it's pointing out what it sees as a structural contradiction. The idea is that a person's worldview has to align with the system's core axiom, in this case, creator-endowed rights, to be able to represent that system with integrity.
So according to this view, defending rights based on reason or human dignity, that's totally fine, but it's a different song. It's a remix that changes the fundamental nature of the right from something endowed and untouchable to something constructed by humans, which means, well, it could potentially be deconstructed by humans too. And this brings us to the final escalation of the argument. This is where it moves from just a philosophical debate to a claim of actual real-world harm to the constitutional order. So you might be asking yourself, is this all just an abstract philosophical game about definitions? Well, according to this thesis, the consequences are very, very real, and they lead directly to the erosion of the very rights we're talking about. The claim here is that when secularism gets treated as the default, neutral position in public life, it essentially becomes a state-backed doctrine. And this, the argument goes, ends up marginalizing the founding worldview and actually harms theists by redefining their rights into something they were never intended to be. And the final conclusion of the argument is pretty stark. It claims that changing the source of rights doesn't just adapt the system, it dissolves it. In other words, you fundamentally break the meaning of unalienable turning a permanent right into something that can just be negotiated away.
So this leaves us with the critical question at the very heart of this whole debate. Should the country's identity be tied to the literal, metaphysical claims of its founding documents, or can its core principles evolve to reflect the diverse beliefs of all of its citizens today?